Reading from The Gun Rights War by Neal Knox. This is section 3, page 142. Section called Florida's Defenseless Tourists, dated September 20th, 1993. Lost in the rumble over the killings of foreign tourists in Florida is the reason why they are being hunted by ruthless thugs. Not only are they likely to be carrying cash, valuable cameras, and other defensible items, they are not armed, unlike perhaps 50% of Floridians. The state's gun law, which allows anyone to carry a gun in his or her car and requires insurance of concealed carry license to anyone who pays the stiff fee and is not prohibited from gun ownership, has resulted in a dangerous environment for criminals. Not surprisingly, the violent crime rate has gone down for the last 3 years, with none of the gunslinging horrors predicted by the law's opponents. When another tourist couple were shot near Tallahassee this week, the Washington Post predictably blamed lax gun laws. In fact, the obvious problem is the state's lax justice system. When these killers are caught, they inevitably are hoodlums who could and should have been in jail. The principal suspect in the Tallahassee murder reportedly is a juvenile with over 50 arrests. The previous week's Miami murder of a German tourist who didn't stop after his rental car was bumped was also blamed on the gun laws. The press was saying that since he did everything right, his wife was reading him the pamphlet warning against stopping, and the car was unmarked. More gun laws was the only solution. In fact, the car did have the distinctive rental car license plates. It was clearly identified as a rental. I saw a video of the crime scene which showed a license plate-sized Alamo car rental tag on the front bumper. The vicious young woman alleged to have killed him, had been in custody August 13th, charged with 4 felony offenses, including possession of a firearm during a violent crime. The Broward County prosecutor had dropped the charges and turned her loose, reportedly because she hadn't used the gun in the armed robbery, hadn't pulled the trigger. Now she has, and that German tourist's unborn child won't have a father. The next section's on page 143. It's called The Panicky Middle Class, dated January 6, 1994. Seemingly random copycat mass murders have changed the perception, though not the reality, that the chance of being murdered is almost non-existent. The chance of being murdered is almost non-existent if people avoid evil companions and evil areas. Killings in cafeterias, malls, shopping centers, and commuter trains have petrified the middle class and upper classes who seldom see the violence that is common in inner cities. Arguments based on logic, reason, or constitutional rights don't seem to matter. The public wants something done, no matter whatever they believe, that there's something is going to make any real difference. Like ancient tribes, they're looking for a virgin to sacrifice. Military semi-autos are the selected offerings, and some of them are indeed virgins, since there have been very few, if any, murders or other crimes with bulky and expensive rifles like the Beretta AR-70 or the FN FAL. That's as ridiculous as the effort to fuel an anti-gun push by pointing to the kidnapped murder of Polly Klaas, who was taken with a knife by a career criminal who had just been released from prison after serving only half of his latest sentence. The Chuck E. Cheese killer in Colorado was only 19. Notwithstanding, his reported record of 5 felony convictions, he had 2 more years to wait before he could have legally bought his .25 caliber Lorson. His victims weren't at the wrong place at the wrong time. He was. He too should have been in jail. The Chelsea, Michigan high school teacher who killed his superintendent and wounded his principal was on Prozac. Like some other guy, Joseph Westbecker, who shot 20 people at the Louisville printing plant in 1989. School teachers should be qualified to buy any gun, or they shouldn't be school teachers. The Long Island Railroad Massacre isn't an argument for more gun laws. It's a classic example of how they fail. Colin Ferguson violated at least a dozen New York, California, and federal gun laws. Ferguson, who seemed to hate everything about this country, but particularly whites, Asians, and conservative blacks, had been the beneficiary of its generosity. He slipped into the U.S. from Jamaica as an illegal alien, but was allowed permanent residency as part of the 1986 amnesty. He evaded, then violated New York's virtual prohibition on handguns by going to California, where he obtained a fraudulent driver's license by giving the address of a cheap hotel, and he used that license and the fact that he had no criminal record to evade the records check during the state's much-touted 15-day waiting period. He violated the federal felony laws against falsifying a form, acquiring a gun out of state, transporting into a state where possession was prohibited, and illegally transporting a gun with which to commit a crime. Would the commuter train passengers have been safer with yet another gun law or an armed off-duty cop on the train? Why not a legally armed citizen? In Florida, where so many citizens are legally armed that the thugs have targeted tourists, only 10 carry licenses have been revoked for gun-related offenses out of some 180,000 issued. Dr. Susina Grazia could have probably stopped the Luby's Cafeteria massacre if the Texas law hadn't forced her to leave her gun in her car. Thomas Glenn Terry used his legally carried .45 to prevent a similar mass murder at a Shoney's in Anniston, Alabama, a month later. When about 20 customers were herded into a walk-in refrigerator, where so many robbery victims have died, Terry started shooting, killing one robber and critically wounding the other, who winged Terry. No one else was injured. Oddly, press coverage of that incident was light. Miss Jacqueline Miller had just reached the gun in her purse when Joseph Westbecker shot her 4 times during the Louisville printing plant killings. If she had been just 2 or 3 seconds faster, Westbecker might have been the only shooting victim, not more than 20. If the public and politicians want to do something to reduce random violence, they should ensure that law-abiding citizens can choose to be licensed to carry the means of defending themselves and their families. Unlike laws that disarm the law-abiding, permissive licensing laws like Georgia's, Florida's, Mississippi's, and Washington states do work, for the crooks no longer are assured that their victims are helpless.
Thank you for supporting our projects. If you'd like to buy us a cup of coffee, check out our Patreon channel.
The guys and gals at gunwebsites.com encourage you to take a CCW class every year, practice at least once a month, and carry every day. Thank you for watching gunwebsites.com.